It's
like
this, but it's a sort of bad jig.
Stuff like that kills me.
People being injured, that's...
No, going
Violence.
flying through the air for no reason.
Mortal Kombat was one of my favorite games growing up.
The lies that are told, you know, can break up relationships. I find that funny. Humour is a major component in video games, but it's also one of the most complex to master. In the beginning, like in film, humour in gaming was very visual and based on a slapstick-style comedy. Fools, grimaces, and massive punches. Some games got it right, some not quite. There are many types of humour, from the most refined...
I made it all up. Surprise.
...to the most extreme.
Hi, hon.
Shut up, man.
And there are all kinds of humour in all kinds of games. Even in a serious saga like Metal Gear Solid, Hideo Kojima could not help but squeeze in the traditional fart joke with Johnny Akiba Sasaki's character. He's basically a guard that in almost every episode has his bum sticking out his pants or has bad diarrhea. One of video games' most famous running gags. Sometimes humour in games is a little more sophisticated, literary even. This is certainly the case in LucasArts productions, which have delighted point-and-click lovers everywhere. Grim Fandango, Sam & Max, Monkey Island and Maniac Mansion put us into totally absurd universes. For example, fighting against a tentacle that wants to take over the world. When humour is more literary, the question is raised regarding cultural references, differences and puns, and how they're translated, as games are so international. The process of translating a game to adapt it to another country is called localization. Sometimes it's really successful and sometimes it goes terribly wrong, but that makes it more entertaining for us. In the no Russian level of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the Japanese team translated "Remember, no Russian" to "Kill them, they're Russian, mission failed." Sometimes the humour doesn't make it at all. Sega's very famous villain, Dr. Robotnik, was originally named Dr. Eggman due to his body shape. But the Western team went rogue and changed his name to Dr. Robotnik, and the rest of the world missed out on a cracking joke. But the master of humour in video games is the weird, wacky and wonderful. Games like Raven Rabbit, Untitled Goose Game and Goat Simulator. Or even in Super Smash Bros, where the final boss is this big white hand that slaps the hell out of you in the middle of space. And we didn't mention the thousands of funny mini games you can find on mobile and PC. My personal favourite is There's Poop in My Soup, for obvious reasons. And there's also Gang Beasts, which I love the slap sound when you knock somebody out. In short, there's something for everyone, from the trash of Postal to the offbeat humour in Fallout to the cynicism of GTA.
Ammunition!
In the game world, its rules and creators are increasingly inspiring film and television, like in the Mythic Quest series, in which you can follow a crazy team of video game creators.
You give the public a shovel, they dig. You give them a pen, they draw. You give them some clay.
Definitely gonna sculpt.
Video games create their own humour. It's specific, original, and thankfully no longer copies other forms of media. Humour is also based on gameplay. Games like This Is Not a Game, Fall Guys, WarioWare, Stanley Parable, or Superliminal are only really funny when the controller's in your hands. Games like Just Cause or The Sims only reveal how funny they are once the player understands what rules can be broken. Thank you, Wicked Wins. Humour above all is a question of daring, timing, and rebellion. And poop, if you're Hideo Kojima.
Akiba, get down with now!
And I have some dope, amazing guests with me on set today. We have Elizabeth Sampat, who is an award-winning gaming designer, including games like Deadbolt and Hungry Shark World. Bilal Zafar, who's an award-winning comedian and Twitch streamer. And we also have Ellie Gibson, who is a co-host of Scummy Mummy podcast, as well as a gaming comic and an award-winning gaming journalist. Ooh, that's a lot to remember.
Wow. I've done a lot of things.
Thank you for joining me today. What's a game that you found funny or hilarious recently?
Ooh, intentionally or unintentionally?
Both.
Most recently, I've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I do find the Nordic dancing really hilarious. And apologies if that is offensive to any medieval Nordic peoples knocking about. It's like this, but it's a sort of bad jig. It's like their feet are sort of tied to the ground with rubber bands, and it's just a lot of. Yeah, and it just makes me wet myself, literally, because I've had 2 children.
So we've basically got NPCs just doing this.
But what I'm worried about is, because obviously I haven't been out much lately,
Yeah.
like many people, and I'm worried that when I do get back into real society, if I go to a nightclub, a discotheque, that's all I'll know how to do anymore, because I'll have forgotten how to dance properly.
Next thing you know, you've set off the next TikTok dance craze, you know?
That's not a bad idea. There you go.
And what about you, Elizabeth?
Recently, I think because of lockdown, the funny game that I've been playing the most of is from the Jackbox Party Pack. It's a bunch of basically video games that are also just party games. We've been doing a lot of Quiplash over Zoom with friends back in the States and people that I can't see right now, obviously. And it's really nice because it's the kind of game that makes it easy to be funny. It's a really funny game, but you walk away from it thinking about how funny you are.
I think I'm the same. I think the game that makes me laugh is one of those games that allows the player to be the humor. So mine is Among Us, but it's because I play with some really, really funny people, and so the lies that are told, you know, can break up relationships. I find that funny.
Yeah.
So do you all have a favorite type of humor in a game?
To be honest with you, I find there's not that many games I find that funny,
Wow.
especially when they're trying to be funny. Video games, right, are inherently hilarious. Like, there is something ridiculous about sitting in your front room doing that and pretending to be a racing car driver or a murderer or a Viking or whatever. It's like, that's stupid, isn't it? And that in itself just makes me laugh. And it's a bit like trying to write jokes about Christmas. It's so ridiculous and so daft to start with that when you then try and be funny, you're just not. The games that do make me laugh are the ones that, you know, where they have bits in that aren't meant to be funny and that are just stupid, or that just really go with it and go, right, let's just embrace the ridiculousness of this. And let's, like a game like Tokyo Jungle, let's create a world where beagles are fighting monkeys and let's see where that takes us. That's, for me, is the best source of humour in games, I think.
Like you said, there's a lot of games that try to be very funny and they make you cringe quite hard. I guess it's a bit like where it's a bit like a film. When a game has really good characters, there can be some quite quirky humour in there and stuff. Otherwise, yes, the majority of the humour for me comes from glitches. Do you remember, wasn't there a thing in GTA 5 or something where you could go to a playground and I think if you went on a swing or something, you went flying? Stuff like that kills me.
People being injured, that's...
No, going
Violence,
flying
death.
through the air for no reason. Yeah, I'll be crying at something like that.
What about you, Elizabeth?
I'm really into sort of the more self-referential or self-deferential or absurd, surreal kind of humor in games. I think, for me, scripted humor works best in a game when it's through environmental storytelling. So like coming across the notes in Control, I don't know if you guys played that, like there was a lot of really funny stuff in that. Gone Home had a great moment. It's basically a game where about rifling through your parents' things, right? Where you find an old essay that the main character wrote about like her period that's hilarious, and just sort of getting that little bit of insight, I think, is really funny in a game.
For me, I think it's the slapstick stuff. I love Fall Guys. I love Gang Beasts. It's the that really, really gets me. Like literally, I can't.
One of the funniest games I played for ages is Hitman.
Yeah.
There's stuff in that.
Yeah.
So recently I was trying to, it's a long story, but a guy was unconscious on the floor in Hitman and I had a fire extinguisher. I was streaming on Twitch and I said, like, I'm not sure what to do. And someone said, spray him with the fire extinguisher. So I went to do that, but you can't actually do that in Hitman. He just chucked it at the guy's head really hard and it made such a good noise. That's an excellent game for comedy, actually, Hitman. There's so much you can do in it.
Hey, you! Why'd you do that? That's more than...
I think it's the fact that people kind of want to do some of the things that are in that game, you know, they want to go around hitting people, so it's funny to see people do it on stream.
Not all games are made to be absolutely funny, but it seems that they all have that possibility. What if that was the real comedy power of video games? Like in movies, a game can be funny because it does it on purpose, but it can also be funny in spite of itself. Either because it's so messed up that it becomes laughable, or because it's buggy and incredible events happen that defy the rationality of the universe. Bugs and glitches can then become infinite sources of fun, sources that players don't refrain from exploiting. The more a game offers a vast and rich universe, the more it is likely to have bugs, small failures, big ones, and it's from these bugs that real comedy is born. But the player can also have fun looking for the limits of a game. The more freedom the player has, the more he, she, or they will try to mess it up. Tackling the goal or referee, throwing a chicken into a volcano, throwing their character into a chimney, tying a horse to a drone. If the game makes such actions possible, consciously or unconsciously, it allows the player to create a funny situation. This is particularly found in sandbox games, such as Minecraft with its free constructions, or GTA with its multitude of possibilities, each one stupider than the last. Sometimes it's the developers themselves who give the players the key to the game, with cheat codes that allow them to break the rules, or the possibility to create mods. The player then becomes the creator in their own right and can shape a whole new world. Whether in Skyrim or in Mario Maker, you quickly realize that it's the player's sense of humor that works best. Bending the rules, making strange mixes, venturing into unknown worlds. The player, the real comedian.
When you're writing your content or trying to deliver it, how do you know what's going to land? How do you explain the mechanisms of humour?
I mean, it's all a bit, sorry, it's a hard question, that's why I'm about to laugh.
I know, I feel like
it's
if we knew the secret to comedy, we'd be a lot more successful.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be on here, we'd be on Strictly Come Dancing.
I mean, I'll try my best. Okay, so with stand-up, it's like, it's really trial and error a lot of the time, because it's like, something could seem genius to you, and then you do it on stage and it could be awful, or the joke could be somewhere else, and you know. Whereas what I found with like streaming on Twitch is, because there's no laughter, except people sometimes going ha ha ha, which isn't quite the same. You have to trust your instincts a lot more. So it's like a totally different discipline. So it's really interesting.
I've written all that down, thank you, that's really good.
He's taking his answer, right? So for instance, you get games like South Park that are adaptations of TV comedy in games. Have any of you played that game, or any games of TV adaptations? Are there any that work well?
I think South Park Phone Destroyer does a really good job. When you're adapting an IP or a property, you've got this balance between trying to be really, really faithful to what you're adapting, but it also has to feel like a really solid game. Because if it's a really funny game, but the gameplay isn't there, people aren't going to play it. I think the whole card system in Phone Destroyer really gives you the opportunity to sort of showcase that South Park sense of humor, but it still has really deep gameplay.
The Lego games, they have a really subtle kind of slapstick humour in those games as well. And there's no talking in those games. It's usually, well, the Star Wars anyway, it's just Chewbacca making sounds. I still find that hilarious.
I guess it's kind of tricky with games, because like you'd watch a film or a TV show or read a book or whatever because you might get told it's funny. I don't think I'd ever play a game because people say it's really funny. You play a game because it's amazing. If the world happens to be quite nice and funny, that's like a bonus, isn't it?
I mean, I'm a game floozy, so I would just pick up a game and play it and then never finish it ever again. So I would try it because someone said it's funny, but would I stick with it? Don't know, it depends on the comedy they land.
You wouldn't hear it, would you? You wouldn't be like, GTA 6 is finally coming out, it's really funny. That wouldn't be the thing that, you know, it'd be all about the game
the
mechanics,
mechanics,
and all of that
yeah.
stuff.
Can we say that there's been an evolution in humour in games?
I've got two older brothers, they used to have a Mega Drive when I was quite little, so I saw a lot of Mortal Kombat way before I should have.
Yes.
But I feel like that's had quite a consistent humour with it, because even, what did we have? I think Mortal Kombat 3 maybe? 2 and 3. And that was really funny.
Really?
And really stupid, yeah. Like, it knew what it was doing. The fatalities were stupid. And then it had, instead of a fatality, there were ones where you could become friends. And there was one where they'd turn into babies.
Babalities.
Babality.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Can I just say that here's an obvious example about the argument about violence in video games, because here we have what's obviously an
Fun,
incredibly
hilarious.
aggressive, very aggressive, violent man.
Mortal Kombat was one of my favorite games growing up, and now I make games about man-eating sharks. So, I mean, Mortal Kombat is actually a great example of an IP sort of going the other way. I bought a Sega Genesis, which I think was the Mega Drive in the US, specifically because of how obsessed I was with Mortal Kombat and how funny I thought it was. But I saw a trailer for the new Mortal Kombat movie, and there's something about real life actors that just makes, I felt a little bit squeamish. Like, this is obviously a very faithful adaptation, but there's something about it being actors that takes the fatalities away from feeling like funny stuff that's happening in a game to being just a little too real to be funny anymore.
I never found it funny. Like, I always found Mortal Kombat really, like, gory.
That's because you're not a psychopath, unlike Bilal.
Not like Bilal.
As we've established, is homicidal maniac, so...
Yeah.
Well, sorry, Bilal. So when we look at AAA releases, there are very few that focus on humour. Why do you think that they don't focus on humour as a mechanism as much as some indie games?
Indie games tend to be a lot shorter, whereas AAA games, we're talking 40, 80, sometimes even 100 hours of content. And you can't be, well, you guys are professionals. Maybe you can be like funny for 100 hours straight.
No.
I can manage about 2 minutes, and that's the max.
So I think, you know, the best AAA games incorporate humor in a way that make the game itself feel a little bit more real. One of my favorite examples is that there's a moment in Dragon Age 2, BioWare sort of created this dialogue wheel system so that if a character asks you a question, you can choose a heroic answer, or a villainous answer, or in Dragon Age 2, a funny answer. And there's a moment where the main character finds out one of her parents died, and one of your NPC friends comes to comfort you about it. You have the choice of thanking her so much, or brushing her off, or making a stupid joke about the fact that one of your parents just died. If you make the joke, the NPC basically responds and is like, well, you know, keep pushing people away, see how far that gets you, and then leaves. And it was just such a real moment that took it from being a game that I was really enjoying to a game that I'll never forget. You can really do that with AAA games, but you can't make a 100-hour experience that is going to be nonstop laughs.
Any other thoughts on why AAA don't entertain humour as much as a mechanic?
Yeah, I think games are only really just now starting to get a handle on narrative. I mean, even that, you know, you play a lot of these long-form video games and the exposition is still characters standing around, you know, going, and then this might happen, and the other one going, oh, goodness me. It's just part of games' evolution that as that gets better, hopefully the humour will then sort of be brought in. But I think at the moment, it's just too much for video games to take on to be funny as well.
Yeah, I think they'd need a consultant or something during the process to kind of help them with some of the timing of jokes.
Perhaps someone who's won awards for
this
game
is what I was
journalism and or
thinking,
comedy,
you know, just-
something like that, who has a #1
Yeah.
podcast.
What,
Yeah.
you want to write a whole game?
I'll do anything for money at this point, Bilal. So.
So we've been talking about humour, it's light-hearted, we're having fun. That all stops. We're having a quiz.
How serious is the quiz? Is the penalty death if we lose? What?
It may be.
Oh, God.
It may be. The quiz entails multiple choice answers. I'll
Okay.
take each of your answers one by one and then we'll reveal the answer. Originally, the Pac-Man game was to be called Puckman. Why did they change it? A, because...
Sorry, I forgot we could. That's me
No,
buzzing in. That's
let me
me
get
buzzing.
to the
I know
answers
why.
first. A, because Puckman already existed. B, because it didn't sound as good as Pac. C, because Puck was the name of a son of a producer who didn't want his kid to be embarrassed in the backyard. Or D, because the players would scratch the P to write Puckman.
Oh my God.
I'm giving nothing away with my face.
D?
I'm also going to go with D.
Stay in it.
It is D. Gonna play some Puckman when I get home, you know what I'm saying? All right, question 2. The creators of video games are sometimes too close to their creation. Among these propositions, which one is true? A, the creator of Sonic was arrested for speeding. B, the creator of Zelda was arrested for night disturbance because he was playing an ocarina at 4 a.m. C, the creator of GTA has been convicted of drunk driving and fighting on a public road. Or D, the creator of Super Mario disguised himself as a plumber and went into people's homes to jump into the toilets.
That sounds terrifying. Don't know this one. Do you
I
know
feel
this
like any guess is slander.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Possibly true.
I'm going to guess A.
I'll guess C.
Ellie?
I'm going to guess C.
No, you cheat. No, you cheat. All right, the answer's C. She only saw it because flipping Marv put his hand around the corner.
No, I thought he was just offering me a cuppa. That's not cheating.
Yeah,
Or he
yeah,
was, you know, calling me a rude word.
The answer is C. The creator of GTA has been convicted of drunk driving and fighting on a public road.
Ah.
I think that's really realistic, to
You
be
can
fair.
do a lot more in GTA though.
Yeah,
You should
exactly.
have gone further.
Are you keeping track of your scores?
Yeah.
Right.
I've got all of them right so far, I think. 3?
Two.
Two.
Only two
I've got
questions.
both.
Don't add,
I've got
don't
4
be adding
points.
points, Bilal, okay? There's
Two.
only two
got one.
questions.
2 out.
It
Yeah.
doesn't happen on
1,
Blockbusters.
2, 1. Next question. A gambler almost went to jail because of video games. He got a 4-month sentence with bail, but what do you think he was guilty of? A, he forced his children to play with him all day long until they were exhausted. Okay. B, B, he used Pokemon Go geolocation to stalk his ex-boyfriend. C, he refused to stop playing Tetris on the plane. Or D, he kidnapped Hideo Kojima to extort him for his next video game.
I think it's B.
B or C, isn't it?
I think I heard about it. I think it's C.
I'm going to go with Elizabeth. I think it's C.
The answer is C.
Right, that's 2 all.
Oh yeah, 2
Very
all.
important to me that I win this.
So glad you're keeping
How many questions are there?
407.
6. All right, next question. Question 4. Originally, Sonic was supposed to be much faster. Why was his top speed reduced? A, to not finish the game too quickly. B, because TFL workers were too scared of him. C, to avoid encouraging risky behaviors among gamblers. Or D, because players got nausea and seizures while playing.
Ooh.
I think I'm going to go with D.
D.
He's already
I mean,
quite
that's
fast.
his whole
isn't
thing,
he?
isn't it? Yeah. A.
Correct answer is D.
The whole reason that Sonic went fast was to demonstrate the processing power on the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive.
Oh. I think
Have some
she's
history
I
there.
think she's basically won the quiz.
That
let's be
should
fair.
give you 2 points for that extra
2
piece of
points.
history, but you know, we can't cheat, so let's move on. Question 5. In Postal 2, what can we use as a silencer for our weapon? A, a roll of toilet paper, B, a vibrator, C, bubble wrap, or D, a cat?
I think I know this. I think it's B.
You're saying a vibrator to silence a weapon.
I mean, you know, something to do.
But it vibrates, it makes sound.
If they could have used an actual penis, they would have gone with that. I feel like a vibrator is probably a step down from the original design.
Plan B.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go with A.
A, roll of toilet paper.
I think I'm also going to go with A.
You're all wrong.
Oh.
It's a cat.
Why?
I don't know, but it is. And
How?
We just need to accept it as truth and
That's
move on.
depressing.
Yeah, I know. It's actually. Yeah, that borders on a animal abuse. Question 6. Question 6. In Saints Row, what weapon can be found? A, the bazooka, a bazooka that plays zouk. B, the dubstep gun, a gun that plays dubstep. C, the Uzi Rider that rocks death metal. Or D, the nuncha Kool and the Gang playing music from Kool and the Gang.
C.
I'm going to go with the dubstep one.
Dubstep.
I'm gonna go with the death metal one.
And the answer is B, the dubstep gun, a gun that plays dubstep. Okay, so now you're going to have to tell me the points because I don't know the points.
I think I have 3.
Bilal?
I have 3.
I believe I have 4.
I believe you have 4. Did you
Yes.
count that yourself?
No, Juicy just waved his phone at me.
Congratulations.
Just going like that. But
Well
again, it might have been how
done.
many sugars do you want in your tea? I don't know. But I think I have 4.
You did well done. Let's give a round of applause to Ellie.
Literally. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and talking about humour in games. Hopefully you get to consult on some games. I'd love to see that.
I think I would certainly love that, and I know my accountant would.
I would like a job.
Just the job.
Now this is going to get funny. We've handpicked 5 video games which we think are hilarious. Number 5, Goat Simulator. A goat is a great source for milk and cheese, but it can also be used to create an MMO simulator, a survival game, and a space adventure. And honestly, all of this gets funnier when a goat is involved. The Goat Simulator has done everything it could with its unique premise, so we award it with the 5th place on our list. Number 4, Octodad Dadliest Catch. We can vividly imagine the conversation that led to the creation of Octodad Dadliest Catch. Let's make a game about a dad who just wants to belong and provide for his family. Sounds boring. Could said dad also be an octopus? Well, okay, that's how Octodad was born. Our 4th place. Number 3, South Park, The Stick of Truth. South Park has been exploring the outer rims of humour for 25 years now. Who would have thought? Cartman, Kyle and the rest of the gang waging war for a simple yet magical piece of wood is South Park lunacy at its best. A well-deserved 3rd place on our list.
Hon, you and your little druid friends need to— We're not druids, Mom! We're fucking warriors and wizards!
Number 2, Worms WMD. During the mid-90s, some genius had the idea to make worms fight each other using shotguns, bazookas, and more. This started decades of merciless and incredibly funny worm wars of all kinds. In 2D, in 3D, across all platforms you can think of. Nowadays, the core idea of the series sounds even more bizarre, but it's still a ton of fun. So we're happy to award the 2nd place to Worms. And here is number 1. You cannot spell funny video games without Monkey Island. Well, you can technically, but you know what I'm talking about. Insult sword fighting, the lovable characters, Guybrush himself, and a basically endless amount of jokes. It doesn't get much funnier than Monkey Island when it comes to video games. Do yourself a favour and play it.